Okay, here we are, and we are going to work with the scale tool. So just like rotate and reflect, it's the same process. We choose an object, we find the reference point for scaling, or the axis point to scale the object, and then we input the amount that we want to scale that object. So let's go ahead and give this a try. I'm going to select this object, so in this case this circle. I'll hit the S key to activate my scale tool. You can also find it here in the tool panel. And by default, the scale tool puts your axis point or your reference point for scaling in the center. You can think of this point as where your object will grow from. So right now it's growing from the center. I'm going to go ahead and go down to this bottom anchor point right here. I'm going to hold down on the Alt key and click. And here it brings up a dialog box that shows the options for scaling. So in this case, I am going to choose a uniform scale at 200%, and I'll check and uncheck the preview to see how that's going to affect it. And I'm going to do exactly what I did on the other transformations. Instead of just clicking OK, I'm going to make a copy. And then I will do Command click. We can go ahead and try that again. So I'm going to hold down the Command key, select that object. If I let go of the Command key, I go right back to using the scale tool. I'm going to find that same anchor point to use as the reference or the axis that it grows from. I'll hold down on the Alt key and click. And this time I'm going to go from using a uniform scale to a non-uniform scaling. So in this case, I'm going to keep the vertical at 100%. So it's going to 100% is essentially the original state of the object. And then I'm going to do 200% for the horizontal scale. So I'm increasing its horizontal scaling by 200%. And then I will click copy. Alright, let's do it one more time. I'll click the circle, choose this axis point, hold down the Alt key and click. I'll go to a non-uniform scaling, and this time we're going to keep the horizontal scale at 100%. So let's try a vertical scale of 400%. And there we can see it increased the scale on the vertical axis by 400%. If I wanted to, I could scale the corners and strokes so that they match the proportions of its original size. So we can see that its original size was very small and the stroke kind of matched that proportion. When I increased it, okay, if I have these scale, strokes, and effects, it's going to increase the size of that stroke to kind of match that new size. If I keep this unchecked, it'll maintain the size of that stroke no matter how big that it gets. So I'll go ahead and click copy and Command click. Okay, so one more thing that we can do with the scale tool is we can scale individual points of an object. So before we've just been scaling just an entire object. Now let's try just doing the individual anchor points. In this case, this square, I want to scale in just these two anchor points to create a trapezoid shape. So I'm going to go ahead and use my white arrow tool, and I will do a marquee selection of these top 2 points, and I can see that those points are selected because they're filled in with the highlight color, and these ones down here are in the white or hollow color. I'll come over and use my scale tool, and what I need to do right now is tell the computer what's the axis that I want to scale these 2 points from. So in this case, I want to make sure that I choose the center. So I could be here, or I could find this center up here. Okay, it doesn't really matter. I'll just choose this one. Alright, now it wants to ask us, from that center, how do we want to scale those 2 points? In this case, I don't want to do a uniform scale. I'm going to do a non-uniform scaling. I'm going to keep the vertical axis at 100%, or the vertical scaling, and then I'm actually going to reduce the scale on the horizontal axis. So I'm going to modify the horizontal scale, and in this case I'm going to do 45 and click and unclick the preview on that. So sometimes you just need to sit and kind of experiment to see what exact percentages and angles that you need for these transformations. So it looks like 45 is good, and then instead of clicking copy, I'll just click OK.